Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and for the Vice Chairman for letting me go first. I think when we usually do these hearings in other committees, there is one agency head who is sitting in front of us who we can hold accountable for outcomes. One of our great challenges is the siloing of services for the tribes, whether it's healthcare with IHS, which is really HHS, whether it is housing and HUD, whether it is all of the issues that fall in all of the above with the Department of Interior and obviously the Department of Justice. And I want to say I applaud this administration for doing the most that I've ever seen to try and coordinate among all of you, to try and build relationships across the agencies to change outcomes. But with that said, we continue to see incredible challenges, whether it's housing or Indian education, Indian healthcare, law enforcement, respect for sovereignty and respect for consultation. And so I just start at that juncture. And so I'm going to kind of be rapid fire here because there's so much to talk about. Ms. Mason, obviously we've extended an invitation to Director Comey to come to North Dakota and come to even Montana and see what's happening with the lack of law enforcement personnel, the lack of really protection for a very vulnerable population. He hasn't responded, and I hope you will go back and ask him once again, given that you have primary jurisdiction in many of our states.
I will share that information with the director, but I would also like to point out that in partnership with the Department of Interior, the Office for Victims of Crime and the Office on Violence Against Women have been working collaboratively to provide services for victims in the Bakken region.
It hasn't stopped drugs from coming onto the reservation, trust me. We're debating right now an opioid bill, a heroin bill. Let me tell you, if you want to see children born under conditions that they should not be born, come to any one of my reservations. And there are people operating there with impunity. And that crosses over to the problems that we have at Indian Health, the problems we have in housing. I want to applaud the great work of Secretary Castro. We've had a number of meetings. Thank you for mentioning our efforts to get a major summit. I am curious about the report, when you expect it to be done, and when we will be seeing you all in North Dakota or even maybe Montana. I've offered maybe to share the responsibility, but we know we have a housing crisis.
Right. Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much, and we very much appreciate the opportunity to continuing to do what we can to foster public and private partnerships. With regard to the housing needs study report, it will be completed this year. We are looking at the preliminary.
Can you narrow it?
Yes.
This year is
yes.
a pretty big.
Yes, I can. I definitely can. So in July of this year, we will release the preliminary findings stemming from the report. At that time, the report will be made available to the tribes for further tribal consultation. We welcome the opportunity to present to this committee the findings of the report. The final report will be completed by no later than December of 2016.
Terrific. I think that it's critically important that we look beyond the HASDA. We look beyond what we're doing right now. It's obviously not getting the job done as it relates to Indian housing, and that exacerbates all of these problems, whether it's locating law enforcement where the crimes are being committed or whether it's getting medical personnel into critical jobs. And so I guess my last question would be for Ms. Smith, recognizing that you haven't been at it very long. But I think to follow up on the chairman's comment, we're being asked to provide more resources, and most of you know that I am in that camp, that the resources that we're currently providing are not adequate to meet treaty obligations, not adequate to fulfill our responsibility. But we need to make sure that what's being spent is being spent appropriately, and we look forward to hearing the outcome of what Deputy Secretary Wakefield told us was the new structure for analyzing these problems and working across the line. But I will encourage you, so many members actually qualify for Medicaid. and could provide a third-party reimbursement funding source that would, in fact, satisfy some of my hospital's concerns that IHS doesn't pay the bills. I mean, that happens. And so I want to continue to encourage you to encourage tribal members to enroll in Medicare and enroll in Medicaid. And somehow, I know that this is a great concern, that somehow that's an abrogation or inappropriate given the treaty obligation. Hope the National Congress can work with us to get the message out, and maybe we can fashion a program that could, in fact, make Indian people more comfortable with getting health care through a third-party fee-for-payment service.
No, thank you, Senator, for the question. Yeah, we are working very hard on encouraging people to sign up for Medicaid, and I will just say, I actually spoke to tribal leaders in Bismarck, North Dakota 2 months ago about Medicaid expansion, and that's exactly the topic we were talking about. We are collaborating closely with CMS.
I will tell you, tribal leaders get it. Unfortunately, many tribal members don't, and somehow we're missing that. And
Yeah.
I think the more advocacy that we can get out there, the better the opportunity to expand services and give Native American people a choice on where they get their health care.